Hello and welcome to another Autodesk Revit and SketchUp tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to create a SketchUp model in Revit. So it's a simple transition how we're going to build this SketchUp model inside Autodesk Revit. And if you're an architect or a civil engineer or a SketchUp user that wants to move from SketchUp to Revit, this is a tutorial that can help you get from SketchUp to Revit and see how the differences work and how you can move from this software over into Revit. Or if you're just a Revit user that wants to work with SketchUp models in Autodesk Revit, this is a tutorial that can help you see how you can generate this model from SketchUp inside Autodesk Revit. So what I'm going to go through is a step-by-step method of how we can create this model inside Autodesk Revit using this SketchUp model as a reference. So this is going to be a fairly long video depending on how many mistakes I make along the way, but it should be comprehensive enough to help you sort out some of the errors that you meet along the way. So I do hope I make mistakes so you can help us fix everything as we go along the way. And you can see inside the building here, there's a staircase inside the SketchUp building. There's also some furniture. There's also some kitchenware and a small bathroom over here. In Revit, you will have to include all those components as well. And you can see that there's a skylight above here. So the building's roof is not really containing any structural elements. Now, I'm a civil engineer by profession, so it helps to know how this building is able to stand, or that's what I'm thinking about, how the roof is able to stand without structural elements in the center. So that just means that to some extent this walls of the building are structural walls or load-bearing walls. That's my assumption, and if not all of them are structural bearing walls, then at least two of them are structural or load-bearing walls. So we'll just head into Revit now. So in Autodesk Revit, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to use the metric discipline to actually do this, and I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. While Revit is loading, we can see other ideas that we can bring into the model and how we can go about creating them. I see that there's a bedroom up here, so the staircase here is leading to a bedroom above, and there's also something below here. Maybe it's like an inner room. Perhaps it can't be an inner room because it's really short, so we'll think about how that actually works. There's also a window near the kitchen side here, and there's some sofa, and then there's of course the main entrance here, which is a curtain wall. It looks like a curtain wall. So there's nothing else outside the building like environment, so that's something we have to decide on our own what we're going to use. There's a window out here and there's a skylight out here. On this other side there are two skylights, and we can see the window of the kitchen side here. So we have to do all this inside Revit, but there's an easy step I'm going to show you. So if you're inside Revit now, the first step to me would be to import the SketchUp model into Revit. The reason why I'm doing this is to get the right measurements for the building that we're going to work with. So to do that, I'm going to actually use a model in place. So I'm going to click on component in Revit and go over to model in place, and I'm just going to use generic model. I'm just going to find that and click OK. Then over here I'm going to type SketchUp Model and click OK. So in here is where we're going to import our SketchUp model. You can actually do it directly without importing through model in place, but I feel this is better, and I heard some comments in the forums, in Revit forums, that this method is actually better. So we're going to use model in place, and then you're going to go over to import CAD. In case you didn't see me do that, over on the import tab, go over to import CAD. This imports 3D geometry. So we're just going to go into the SketchUp model now, and I'm going to, I think it's inside my downloads. I'm just going to switch this to download. Inside my downloads folder, I should see the SketchUp file here. Okay, there's our first mistake. I can't find the file, so we have to actually export it again. So I'm going to head over to SketchUp now. So now in SketchUp, this is the model. We're going to have to export this and select, go to File in SketchUp, go over to Export, choose 3D model, and you're going to choose the location. I'm going to set downloads again or desktop so I can actually find it very easily. And it's currently called SketchUp 8.dwg. I think this is the file. Now you can use the DWG export format, but in this case I'm going to use the IFC4 format, and I'm just going to select IFC4 and click export, and at the same time I'm going to allow the SketchUp to go ahead and export the model. Export complete. Very good, thank you. I'm also going to export another DWG file. Oops, my SketchUp has crashed. Second error. So we're back. I'm also going to export it as DWG again, so in case we don't have the correct measurements with IFC, we're going to use DWG now and then export it, and again set it to desktop so we can find it very easily and click export. SketchUp is just going to go ahead and export that file. So now that it's done, we can go ahead and click OK, and now we have our two files, DWG and IFC. So back in Revit now, we're going to head over to the Import Card tab and then select Import Card. I can switch now from DWG. First of all, head over to Downloads and over to this PC, go to Downloads. That is where we ended up saving the file, and we can choose, okay, not Downloads, it's actually on the desktop really. Okay, so it's on the desktop, you can see the DWG, but I'm going to start with the IFC file. Okay, since it's an IFC, we can't actually import it as a CAD because IFC is not a CAD, so it's not a computer-aided design format. So I'm just going to select the DWG now, and we're going to try IFC much later. So I'm going to select the DWG. Once that's selected, I'm going to leave every information as it is here. We're going to use auto origin, internal origin, and colors preserve everything, auto detect everything, and then click open. Revit is just going to take a while to import that. So once the model is ready, we can see the model inside of Revit now. I can just select this. It also asks you to either delete layers or exclude some of those layers, but I think I'm just going to use partial exclude for now. And once the partial exclude model is selected, we can see all the individual elements now. And even if you choose from the Revit project browser, you can have your level 1 floor plan or your level 2 floor plan over here. You have different floor plans under architectural discipline. So if I switch to level 2 floor plan, you can see what the upper floor plan inside the SketchUp model actually looks like as a reference, and that's what we need. So I can also come to this upper panel here. You can see a house. That's where you're going to change to 3D view. So if you go ahead and click that house, it's going to show you a 3D view of the model inside of Revit and all the elements that are in there, so we can start working with this. So once that's done, just head over and click finish model, and your building should be there. Now you notice that you can't touch all the individual elements anymore, so that's still okay. We need it as a reference. We're not actually working with the model, we need it as a reference. So I can select this and we can use this to actually design the model. So this is currently level 1. Now we can start creating the elements inside of Revit. So first of all, I'm going to measure what this building looks like here. We're going to measure from this point to this point and get the dimension of the building. It shows here 3,500, so that's 3.5 meters from 3.5 meters as the width of the building, and the length of the building is about, oops, I can't see anything there. Hold on, is that 10,444? Okay, so I see it as 10 meters 400, 10 meters 444. That's the full length of the building. So you can go ahead and click modify or press MD on your keyboard to get the mouse back and unselect everything. So that's the dimension of the building. So we're going to have to create a wall that is 3.5 meters. So just head over to architecture tab, select wall. I can use a generic wall of 200, but there are other Revit types of walls. If you go ahead and select the properties panel here and just see the basic wall generic, if you go ahead and click on that, you can see all other types of walls that you can go on to create. But before we get into the wall, we have to get a fair knowledge or an idea of what the height of the building is like, because the upper side of the roof doesn't have any structural elements. That's also a room in itself. So we're going to head over to the elevations in the project browser here. Just click that and maybe choose one of the elevations, let's say east elevation, and you can see here that the exact height of this building at the tip, very close to the top of the roof here, is about 3,600 meters. So if we go ahead and maybe create a line, can I use a model line here? No, I can't use a model line. Let's try the annotate tab, And if you head over to your annotate tab, you can see a detail line, and just go ahead and click that. What I want to use the detail line for is to measure the exact height of this building. So I'm just going to create a detail line there. Now the detail line exists, I can measure using the modify tab. Just go ahead and click measure again, and we're going to measure the exact height of the top of the roof, the very top to the bottom level. That's 3774.6. so we can play with that and have what we want, but that's the rough height of the exact top of the building. How about the inner side to the ground of the building inside itself? That's 3330.5. So this is basically how we walk around it between Revit and SketchUp, is to have an idea of the spaces and the length and breadth of these spaces, so you can know how to go about creating your building elements. So inside Revit now, we're going to create a generic wall. Just go ahead and select this, click the endpoint here and drag the line out. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned with the reference model, so you can just get the other end, or you can see the length inside the building here, 104440. I can go ahead and click enter and just accept that, and just head over again to get the other side, that is 3500. Because we know it's 35, we know where to stop, and we can go ahead and, did I get that line right? It's straight. Okay, so head over to the next side, make sure that's 10444 and accept that. So now we have our structural wall. That's what I'm going to call it. Now we have our structural wall. So the next thing we have to do is to create the, let's say, the level 2. There's nothing much in there, so most of it is going to be elements inside. Instead of creating the roof now, we can select this and use VG. VG turns on the view and visibility model. So under, I'm going to find imported categories, so you can see what we've imported from SketchUp to see how it looks. But what I want to do here is to make all the elements to be halftone. So for the imported families, that's everything that is inside Revit from SketchUp, I can just select halftone and then click apply. The reason why I'm doing that is because I want to see the Revit model clearly. Hopefully this works. I'm just going to click apply and click OK. Okay, it didn't change anything, so we have to actually find another way. You can press VV, that brings us, okay, it's the same thing, it takes us here. So it didn't work for the imported families, but we have to try another method. So we're going to head over to model categories. I think the model family that we imported from SketchUp is under generic models, so I'm just going to head over to generic models now. You can see the generic model also has the option for halftone, so I'm going to click that for generic model and hope that that actually works. So let me just shift this to the side and see apply. Okay, very good. The generic model goes on to apply the halftone. So now we have a view of our building model inside of Revit, but a ghost version of the SketchUp model also inside. So we can head over to level 2 and see what that looks like. Level 2 still has this level 2 has its own graphic dimension, so we have to do the same thing. Press VV on your keyboard and then look for the generic model and select the halftone and click apply. So it's still acting as a reference even though we get to see our model. So in 3D now, you can see the house that we're starting to build, and these walls are about, according to our dimensions, these walls are about, I'm just going to select this first of all and click OK, and we're going to find the height of this wall where it stops. For now, I'm going to make this about 2 meters, so they come halfway. You can type in and then move your mouse. You can check the unconnected height of the building, type it in and then move your mouse and it's going to apply. But if you don't want to move your mouse, you can scroll down and click apply. So now we have the height of this and we want to measure. Go to the modify tab and click measure. We're going to measure the height from here to the ground. That's 2549.2. So we're going to select this and say unconnected height of this building, 2549. 5.2. To be logical, let's make this 2550. That just sounds fair, and I can go down and click apply, and now we have the height of the building. You notice that somebody here hasn't taken that dimension, so and should have pressed tab to press. If you hover your mouse over a wall on Revit and you press tab, it's going to select all the walls, but I didn't do that before I changed the dimension of this one, so that's why this guy was left out. So I'm just going to select this one and make sure that everybody else is selected. I'm going to go to the 3D view to rotate it using this cube, and we can see another model here. You can hold shift or CTRL. CTRL shows a plus sign on the mouse that can allow you to select something in addition, but if I want to deselect something, I'm going to have to hold shift to deselect that element. So if I hold shift and select this, it's going to go off, so I have to hold CTRL to select this, and we still have one more on the other side. So I can go here, remember to hold CTRL and press shift. Where is it? I have to really try to do this perfectly. There we go. So remember the height of the building now is 2550.0, and click apply. So now we have the height of our building. What is next is to create the roof, but before we get to that roof, we have to finish all the components inside the house first. We can go back into Revit to get a fair idea of what we're doing. And so inside the building there's what you call, there's a bathroom in here. There's also a sink on the left hand side. We can go into the building here and you can see a pan. This is basically SketchUp inside the building. I've missed my way, so I'm going to have to center the image. Does anybody know how to center the image in? Okay, we're back. So if you select this zoom extent, it takes you back. So back to the, we're going to press O to orbit around the building. There's also the look around option. So there's a window, and then near the window there's a sink. There's also a kitchen. There is also a bathroom in here that we can work with and try to create in Revit. So that's the idea of what we're doing at this corner. So if we head over to Revit, the first thing we're going to want to create is the window on this side. So I'm just going to go to architecture and create window. First, we're going to want to measure the width of the window inside of SketchUp and see what we're working with. So that is about 600. So inside of Revit we have a 600 by 900 window, and I think that's one we're going to use. So 600 by 900, you can see that that window actually matches up directly with this. So but our Revit wall, there we go. Just click enter and we have our window. So you can press escape twice and go back to the 3D view and make sure that the window is actually in there. So you can see that the height of the window is different from the one in SketchUp. So there's a way we can actually go about doing this. We can head over to the elevations, one of the elevations. I think I'm going to open all of them now to be sure which one can actually show us that. Is the west elevation that can actually show us the height of that building. So what we're going to do now is to move this window all the way to the top. What we didn't do was check the length of the window, but we can do that right now. Just select this wall and we're going to move it down a bit, maybe 2100, and click apply. So you can see the wall now and we can see the window as well. So we're going to use the modify tab to check the dimension of this window. That's 600 by 700. So we can edit our window inside of Revit to match that. So I'm going to select this window. We're going to go to edit type, and in order not to affect the real window, we're going to duplicate it and go ahead and change the dimension here from 600 by 900 to 600 by 700, and then click OK. So what we're going to do is change the height of that window to 600 by 700, and then go ahead and click OK. So now we have the exact dimension of that building. So we're going to use the align tool to move this window all the way up to where this one is. So I'm going to select the align tool now, and we're going to choose the very top of this SketchUp window. Select that one first and then come down to Revit model and click it. Okay, that didn't work. so we're going to have to move it manually, maybe because the SketchUp model is a generic component model in place. So we're going to have to move this window manually now. I'm just going to select this. Oh no, I know why it didn't work. The wall in this building is too short, so there's no wall here for you to move it to. So I'm to select this wall and just make it about 3,500 meters. The problem with this is we may not get to see the window anymore. So what we're going to do now is to change the Revit detail level from the Revit visual style. We're going to change that down here from hidden line to wireframe. So now that we have the wireframe selected, we can see that there's a lot of information here, but it's the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and press VV and change the generic model view detail and turn on the halftone now and click apply. So that gives us a halftone even on the west elevation. So now we're going to head over to the window. That's the window that we want to align to the other window. So we're going to click the align tool now, select this window and select the window from Revit. It still doesn't move it, so I guess we have to do it manually now, right? Okay, so we're going to turn the visual style back to hidden line. We're still going to need the wireframe, so I'm going to have to select this window now. There's the window, we have that selected. We're going to move that window, but you have to find it by the corner here. Select it from here and take it over to the SketchUp Models corner and drop it there. So we have our window exactly where we want it to be. Okay, it doesn't look like it is exactly where we want it to be, so we have to measure it properly. We have to align this window properly with this one. So I think it's the internal side of the window. So let's try using the internal side of the window to the internal side of this one. This is me trying to be perfect, so I'm going to check this window again and be sure that the dimension of this window is actually how we want it to be. It says here 600 by 700, so let me use a measuring tool to measure the SketchUp window. It's 600 by 700 on the outside. So we have our Revit window selected. What we want to do is to change the rough height and the rough width to 700. 600 by 700. And then click apply, click OK. It should be smaller now, but it will be more accurate with the SketchUp model. Okay, that's what we're going to agree with now. And in order not to be too perfect or try to be a perfectionist, we're going to leave it as it is. It's close enough in the measurements, but it's not exact. So we're going to take the wall back now. Or we're going to allow this wall to be the way it is, and we're just going to go back to the hidden line version. And we have our 3D model, and there's a reason why I'm allowing this wall to be taller than this. I'm going to tell you why as we get on and create the roof, but for now let's just have it the way it is. So let's go back to the level 1. We've created our window after a while, and next is to create this bathroom here, and that is just by placing a component inside of Revit and just head over to the properties panel here to find a bathroom. If you see one, there's a lot of other elements here, but if you don't see a bathroom, we're going to have to import it from the Revit library. So I'm just going to scroll up gently, or you can just type in bathroom. Okay, there's no bathroom in here, so we're going to have to load one from the Revit family. But if you're new to Revit and you can't find any of this Revit components inside here, you can let me know in the comment section and I'll create a separate video of how you can go about doing it. By default, the Revit library is going to be there, but in Revit 2025 you don't really have access to the library. I'm also going to attach a link in the description so you can download the Revit library that I'm currently using. So I'm going to choose the UK version now, and we're going to find fixtures, that is under plumbing. So head over to plumbing and architecture. We're going to find fixtures. Bathrooms, there's bathtubs, there's drains, there's shower. What we see here in this architecture model from SketchUp is a shower, so we're going to choose that. There's a ring here. There's shower for disabled. There's another type of shower. This is one that is closest, 2D. There's also a corner shower. There's a different corner shower here. I think this tray square is the closest to what we're seeing here, so we're going to select this, the tray square, and click open. You can see I'm importing that from a different model of Revit. Now our shower is quite big, but we can see where the drainage is, so we're going to have to drop this shower inside of Revit. We can press spacebar to rotate it and rotate it how you want it to go. So that's it. We can, and then go ahead and drop this. So once we've dropped it inside of Revit, we can then edit the shower. You can select it and then go over to the edit tab and edit the profile, just like we did for the window. We're going to duplicate this, but in order to do that, we have to find the real dimension of the shower inside of SketchUp. So we're going to measure this and go from one end to this other end here. That gives us 903, so we're going to assume 905. Oh, my project isn't saved. Wow. So we're just going to call this SKP RVT. So now that our model is saved, we can still continue measuring our shower. So select this and get over to this other end, 900 by 900. So that's going to be my assumption. So we're going to select this one now, and we're going to change that and then duplicate the plan. We're going to call it 900 by 900 inside of Revit. Oh, there's also already a 900 by 900. Okay, why didn't you just say so? So I can now select this. You can just choose it. In case you don't want to change the name, you can just select the one that is 900 by 900. Now we have to move this to the correct position. I'm going to use wireframe again here, so you can see where the shower actually begins, and we're going to move this one. You can just click on an element and drag it. It is going to move it into place. So that, to my knowledge, is how accurate we can be with the shower placement. So it's close enough. Okay, this is better. You can move the direction. You can use the directional buttons on your keyboard to actually move the element into place. So we can see that there's a wall here beside the shower that connects with where the sink is. There's a sink close to this wall, and there's a wall here and a wall opening. We can go back into SketchUp just to get a clear picture of what we're working with. So there's a wall and there's an opening, so we're going to call it an internal wall, joining these sides of the building together. That wall doesn't go all the way to the roof, it's just like a flat board. And on the other side of the wall, we're going to have to go inside the building now. Use the pan around, then press O again, and then just to see what's on the other side. Okay, I'm going to assume that's the toilet. So inside of Revit, there's a toilet here, there's a shower here, there's a sink here. So in Revit, the toilet looks very different. So we're going to head over to architecture and click components. So we're going to choose the toilet. I think there's a toilet water closet in here. There's a flush valve mounted water closet. We can find the normal water closet that we know. So there's a flushing greater than 6.1. We're going to bring that into the model in here. It's near the wall, so we're going to have it connected like this. Align it with the real toilet that is here, and then that's very simple. So we have our toilet in place. The next is to put in the sink. Let's head over to the component tab again. Search for sink in here in case there is a sink. I can type it in the search bar. Sink. So we have a sink, private, since this is a private sink, but this is dual. We need a single sink. Private 445 by 445 sink. You can select this and then bring it inside of Revit. It has to be close to the wall. You can use the spacebar to rotate the sink. It's only rotating on two sides, so I might have to import a different sink compared to this one that I have here, because I don't really like the way this one is behaving. So you can use the load family. We were in showers, so you just go step back up. You can look for sinks, and remember, in case you need this Revit library, let me know. Basin, there's a basin sink. Oh, there's a lot of sinks in there. So we need a single sink that is, hold on, great, this looks good. Plumbing fixtures 2D sink. So we're just going to select OK and take it close to the wall. Perfect. So that's the sink that we're looking for, right under the window. Drop that in there. I'm just going to click modify to bring everything back to normal. So now SketchUp is telling me something about this wall, that this wall is very thick. If you see where the SketchUp sink is starting from, it shows you where this wall is. So we're going to have to select this our wall and we're going to change the thickness of this wall. So we're just going to, before we edit type, remember we have to measure the wall. So we're going to measure the wall inside of SketchUp now and see the thickness of that wall. So that wall is 477.0. So that is the thickness of the wall that we're going to use. So we're going to select our own wall, edit the type, and click duplicate, and we're going to call it generic 477. Click OK, and we're going to change the width. But in Revit, it's not very easy to do it the way we do for Windows. So we're going to edit the structure of that building, and you can see wall by category. So the thickness is what we're going to change now, 477. Type that in and click OK, then click OK again. That changes the thickness of the wall, but you can see now that the wall's thickness is not where we want it to be. So we're first going to try to align it, or if the align button doesn't work, we're going to use the move command. So we're going to click align first. We want to align the wall with this one here. So first you have to click the reference that you want to align it to, then click the object that you want to align. So I'm going to click first this reference line and then click the wall's edge like this. As soon as I can grab it, I can't grab it. So the align tool is not working. Okay, hold on. Nah, it's not working. That's going to just move the wall. So what we want to do is to use the move command. I can select the move command, pick this wall, and we're going to move it. Press enter and then move it from this corner to this corner. So there is the wall now, and we have our sink where it's supposed to be. The window is going to be slightly thick now. If you go over to 3D, you can see how thick the wall has become, but you can see that it's now recognizing the thickness of this. You can see that it's recognizing the thickness of this other wall here the way it is. So I feel validated by saying the walls are structural bearing walls, because this is really thick. So back to the architecture tab now. We're going to do the same thing for this wall here. We're going to just select this, but watch what's going to happen now. In Revit, you can literally just press tab to select all the other walls, or you can hold CTRL like I said before and select this other wall and select this third wall here. And now we're going to change that from basic wall 200 to generic wall 477. So that way all the walls now collect the new dimension, but you notice that some of them are not in the right location where they are supposed to be. So we're going to have to move them around manually. So you can select this one first, use the move command, and we're going to move the wall from this corner here to this corner here. So now that that one is selected, we're going to move the next one. Select this wall, okay. I feel 477 is too thick, so we're going to have to edit this. We're going to edit 477 to maybe 450 and click OK. Click OK again. It should give me a reasonable dimension because 477 is really thick. Okay, I think 450 is correct. It also aligns with this one. So these walls on the shorter walls are 477, but the longer walls are not 477. We're going to have to edit the longer walls to match their real dimension, so you have to measure those ones as well. So we're going to just head in here, select this. Okay, it says 298. So the window gives us the perfect dimension for what the wall is going to be, the wall thickness is. So we're going to use this window here as a reference, select it and come down here. It says 305, so I'm going to assume that is the thickness of that wall. So for this one, so we're going to select this long wall here. We're going to edit the type. We're going to duplicate this one and say 305. So this is going to be a 305 wall. It's going to change its dimension to 305. So sorry for the dimensional adjustment, but that is the way Revit actually works. You have to actually adjust everything to match how it's supposed to be. So this is going to be a 305 wall, and go ahead and click OK. So now that we have our 305 wall, we're going to click OK now. So now the real dimension of that wall is selected, but we're going to have to move this wall according to, we're going to just select this wall and click the move command here, or you can just press MV on the keyboard. I'm going to click the move command, and I'm going to move this wall from this dimension and take it to where the window actually starts from. I'm going to zoom in and find where that window is. If it's not perfect, you can use the arrow dimensions on your keyboard to actually move it into place. Once it's into place, you know that your wall is correct now. Now we want to change the last dimension of this other wall here. We're going to select it and change it to the 305 wall. So we have our generic 305 wall. So that is exactly how it is. Remember, we're going to have to reference it with the SketchUp's model. So we're going to select this wall and use the move command, and then find where the, just select the wall and take it to where the window is. That is perfect. So we have our wall in place. Our toilet needs to move as well, so we're going to have to select this. I notice it's locked into the wall now. It's not supposed to be there. So you can use directional button to move it up, or you can just drag it manually. You see that we're using a different toilet, so it's not going to be aligned with that of the SketchUp toilet. I don't know what the SketchUp model is doing over there. The next wall we're going to include is the internal wall here that separates the toilet from the other part of the building. So this is an internal wall, so you're going to head over to architecture. Now in that architecture, select walls and then scroll down a bit, use basic wall. I'm going to see internal 125. I think that's what I'm going to use, internal 1251 HR. So you can just come over here. It's going to be slightly thicker than the one in SketchUp, but that's okay. So we can select this midpoint and drag it all the way up here and meet the other side of the wall. So once it gets close to the other wall, we can click OK and it's going to accept it. So we have a wall now inside of SketchUp, we have a wall now inside of Revit, but there's an opening inside that wall. If you head over to SketchUp now and use the orbit tool, you'll see that inside this zoom extents. Okay, we're back. You see that inside here there is a wall. Let me just use the pan tool. You see that over here there is what we call a door opening. So it's here where the bathroom is and where the sink is and everything else is. So it's just an opening. In Revit we're going to actually do that, so you can head over to Revit and you can use the modify tool to select this wall. So once you select the wall, you can choose to edit the profile of the wall, or you can choose to create a door opening that is actually like a door opening. So you can also see wall opening here. You cut a rectangular opening through the wall, so that's something that you can actually go on to do. But what I want to do is to actually import a door opening. So what's going to happen, we're going to select this wall now and we're going to go over to architecture. Okay, we don't have to select the wall. We're going to go over to architecture and select door. Under the door we're going to see other types of doors, but notice that the door opening isn't here. So we're going to load family and go over to door. We're currently in fixtures, architectural. We're going to go back to doors and say internal door, because the door opening is actually internal. So you can see different types of doors in here. There's internal doors, concept doors. I don't see a door opening in this category, so we're going to go over to somewhere else. Okay, structural door opening, wonderful. It's under structural, not under internal, sorry. So under structural you find the door opening. I'll just go ahead and click open. So now that we have our door opening, we can find where that opening stops. So there it is, there's an opening here. Just go ahead and click OK. We can also use the measuring tool to find out what the measurement of that opening is, so we can match it. It shows here it's 1000. Okay, so we're going to just select our door opening. You can use tab to select different elements. So if I press tab, it keeps selecting which one I want to. It switches from the selection that we have by the mouse. So we have the door opening now, we have the wall, we have the Revit structural reference. Back again to the door opening, select that. You can see that this is 915 by 2134, but we want it to be 1000. So we're going to just click edit type. We're going to duplicate this, but before that I want to be sure there is no 1000 here. Okay, there is no 1000, so we're going to duplicate this, change this dimension, and call this 1015, because Revit can be funny like that, and the 15 is just a additional cover. So we're just going to click OK here and change this dimension to 1015 and click apply, click OK. So you can see now that is perfectly aligned with the other one, sort of. So now we have our door opening, we have a kitchen component here to add. There's also a machine here, and there's a sofa, and there's a dining table, and then there's a bedroom and the staircase. So what we want to do next is to create the kitchen component. You can head over to architecture, you can head over to component as well. Under the component you can find all the fixtures that you need. There's also some kitchen cabinets in here, but there's a sink for the kitchen over here, so we have to gently scroll and find which one is going to be suitable for what we're trying to do. We can just type kitchen. Okay, this is a kitchen sink, but it's just a sink by itself, no cupboard near it or whatever. So we'll have to load the family now, and away from structure, and now we're going to find furniture. Under furniture we can head over to storage. Under storage we can find different types of cabinets that are useful for the kitchen and also for the house. Normally most of these cabinets are house cabinets, so it's not in storage. I guess it's in casework. We can find casework. Okay, yes, there's base cabinets for kitchen. There's also cabinets with countertops. Okay, these are countertops for each of those cabinets, so we're going to have to put the base cabinet first and then put the countertop above it. So if we find an L-shaped cabinet, that would be nice. Okay, there's one here, corner, double doors. We're going to select this, go ahead and click open. So that's going to serve as our corner cabinet. Once that's in place, we can put another 2 cabinets beside it, and then we'll have the rest. So we're going to head over to component again, have our base cabinet. We're still going to load more. Now that we have our base cabinet, we're going to have one here to bring this other end, where we're going to add the sink. Can have that cabinet here for the sink. We still have to do the measurement and see the difference between the two. We can go back to the Modify tab and select measure. We're going to measure from this point to where this one ends. That's 891, and our model is 1000 by 600 by 710. We can choose to edit type, or you can just keep going. We have to put the other side of the other side now. Head over to component. I think we can use the same model here. It's not really okay. We can. So now we have our kitchen cabinet. What we have to do next is to put the burner. Okay, we have to undo what we just did, because the burner is here and the burner has its own element inside of Revit. So we're going to choose the component, away from base cabinet. We can find, so I can't seem to find the stove anywhere. I'm going to try this specialty equipment, and under specialty equipment we're going to choose domestic, and there's high-end. That's actually where I was able to go ahead and find it. There's a coffee system, there's an electric system, there's a cooking top electric system by 900. We're going to use the 750 version. We're just going to load that in, and we have to place it on something, so we're just going to have that in first. We can place it on a wall, perhaps. It's not supposed to be on a wall. it's supposed to be on a cabinet, so we have to load in a cabinet first and then go ahead and put the cookware on top of it. So I'm just going to press escape now and then component again. We're going to find the cabinet. There's a standard, just go ahead and search cabinet because I've loaded one in before. There's a cabinet here. I'm just going to drag that to where it's supposed to be, nearest to the wall, I guess. So once that's there, we can go ahead and bring in our cooking cabinet. Okay, Revit is still reminding me to save, and I have to find the cooking cabinet now. Okay, cooktop 750 generic. Okay, it's choosing not to be on the cabinet. For some reason the cooktop wants to be on the wall. I don't know how that helps any of us. Or what I can do is to create a section view here inside of Revit. So I'm just going to click this section here and we're going to cut a section across this place to see how we can bring that cookware inside. So we're just going to have the section go across the entire building for now, in case we need it in other areas. So once I have my section, you can find it in the section tab, or you can double click this arrow here, but we're going to head over to sections. Under the architecture tab, let's close elevations. There's sections, building section, section 2. There's also working section, section 1. I'm going to try the working section first. It's not the working section. We're going to close that and we're going to go over to building sections, section 2. So that shows us our cabinet. And cutting a section helps us see where all our problems have been in this building from the past. Because we don't have any floor, the cookware cannot stay near the building, so everything is on the ground like this. So in order for us to sort that out, we first of all have to create the floor. In order to create the floor, we're going to use a measuring tool to figure out the dimension of the floor thickness itself. So this is the bottom of the floor all the way to the top. The floor is 335.0. so sorry for not creating the floor earlier. It's what I should have done from the beginning. 335.0. so I'm going to go back to the architecture plan, and or before that, let's head over to the section. We're going to just select this wall here, and we're going to use offset from the host, or elevation from the level, 350, and just click apply. So that takes it all the way up. So we're going to select every other thing here, all the components that we went on to drop, hold CT Arial and select it, offset from the level 350, and click apply. The reason why I'm doing this is so I can create my floor without actually cutting through those elements. So I'm just going to select level 1 now, and we're going to select this generic SketchUp model that came in with us, and below here I'm going to actually hide that element. So we can see where there's a pair of glasses. Just go ahead and click those pair of glasses and say hide element. Now that element is hidden, we have our model now from Revit, pure Revit model, no SketchUp interference in between. So what I want to do now is to go ahead to architecture and create floor. Inside the floor, I'm going to use the rectangle tool to actually create this, but you can use a line tool if you want. I'm going to click rectangle. We're going to find the midpoint of this floor, select it, and draw a rectangle all the way to here. Now the floor has a dimension of 355, so we're going to use generic field, edit the type. We're going to duplicate this model, edit field 355. 3550. We're going to go over to the structure just like we did for the walls, 355, and then click OK, and go ahead and click OK as well. So that is our generic 355 field. We're going to go ahead and click OK. Now we've got what we want. So there is our floor. We can reset the hide tool now, and then reset all the temporary hide and isolate elements. So I'm going to go back to 3D and make sure that the floor is actually there. So yes, the floor is there. but you can see that it's hanging on the edge of this, so we're going to have to create another environment here to actually cover for that floor, but the floor is there now. So we want to go back to the section and make sure that everything else is on the floor. So if we select this floor, we see now that the floor is actually going downward. So I'm actually going to find a different way to fix this. So the floor is 355. So what I'm going to do is create a new level that is 355 meters away from this. I'm just going to draw this anywhere I want it to. Okay. So now that is there, we're going to select this level and make it 355.0. So there is the level that represents our floor. We're going to pull it out away, give it a name. It currently has no head. You can decide that in the properties panel. Just select this and say architecture 8mm head. So we're going to change this to from level 3 to ground floor. Let's click enter, and we're going to pull this away. We can actually drag this back. We can actually unpin this and drag this one back. So we have our ground floor at 355 and we have the same ground floor here at 355. Pull this one inside. So now we can head over, we can select this for the ground floor and then change the level for the floor that we created, and then change that from L1 to ground floor, and we have the floor where it is supposed to be now. So that's what we're working with. So if you go back to architecture, all our elements, remember we still have to actually select that those guys should be where they're supposed to be. So we're going to select each of those components now using CTRL to select each of those components and change their level from L1 to ground floor, and then we're going to remove the elevation from that and click apply. So now they are on the ground floor. That's where they are supposed to be. In Revit, you can also create a 3D view of what is inside the building to actually help us see this kitchen cabinet and what the issue is. So we can click this down arrow beside the house, and then you can see a camera. So you want to put the camera at the corner of this building here, click it and drag it to where you want it to stop, and once you have that in place, you get a view of the kitchen. You can move it around with this cursor here. You can move the view around. We can still see the 3D version of, we can still see the 3D SketchUp model inside the building, but that's okay. We can also see that this Revit counter is not up to standard with what is inside of SketchUp. We can select it. We know the dimensions of the Revit cabinet. What we want to do now is change the dimension of the Revit cabinet to match the dimension of the SketchUp cabinet. So we go back to our section view. Inside our section view, we can see the model here. We're going to have to measure it. So I'm going to select this SketchUp model again, press VV, and we're going to change it to halftone. Under the generic models, where is it? Generic model, select halftone and click apply, click OK. Now we want to measure the height of this cabinet from this point to the ground. How tall is this cabinet? So the cabinet is about 883.0 in height approximately, because the angle there is not yet 90 degrees, but 883 is the height. So we're going to select this cabinet here, go over to edit type, and then we're going to duplicate this one and call it the height 710. The height should not be 710, the height should be 883. So I'm going to use 880 there and just click OK and change the height here from 800 to 880. Click OK. Now you can see that we have our cabinet all the way up now, the way it's supposed to be. So the next is to come over here. We're going to do the same thing here, edit type. This one says 860 for height, the other one is 880, so we're going to duplicate this one. Instead of 860, we're going to say 880. and click OK. Change the height here to 880. Click OK. So that's our cabinet sorted out. So we can still go back to the 3D view, the custom 3D view that we had. There's another cabinet in here. You can use the tab key to change selection. So this one also needs to change. It's also 880. You can use the tab key to change which other cabinet is here. I thought I created 3 cabinets. Okay, we'll figure that out much later. Let's just close all the elevations, north and south and east. So architecture 1, there is the model I'm looking for. This one is saying 710. So we're going to duplicate this. Instead of 710, it's 880. Change this and say OK, and then create this and say 880 and click OK. So that's the last cabinet we're trying to fix. So that's for the kitchenware. We will try the cookware once again. If it does work, that's fine. If it doesn't, we're going to move on to something else. So the cooktop, yeah, it's showing that you can now place the cooktop on this cabinet, but we're going to have to move it because that's not the location of the cooktop. So we can use the directional button to manually move it inside where it's supposed to be. Alright, so we have our cooktop selected now. I don't know why the name had to come with it, but it's alright. So the next thing we're going to look at here is the sofa and the dining table. So we're going to go over to components. This one should be fairly easy and not come with too much headaches. So we're going to choose component, and I'm going to assume that there is no chair in place, so we're going to have to load another family. And under this we can go to sitting. Under furniture we can find seating, and there's a bench, there's also some chairs, but we need a sofa type of chair. So this is one that we can use because it's a dual chair there. It's 2 seats, so you can try this one. Just go ahead and click open sofa cobble. So this is what we're going to use. We don't have the SketchUp reference for this, so this is what we're going to use instead. It's slightly bent to one side, I don't know why. Alright, so we can work with this and then just align this to where it's supposed to be. There we have our sofa model in reference, and next is the dining tables. Again, we're going to load family. Instead of seating, go over to tables, and there's dining round table, there's dining, all dining round table. So we have to check a different set now. So there's desk. We're going to go up to maybe the UK version and hope that this dining table rectangular is going to be there. So there's tables, there's credenza, there's also table for conferences, there's dining table rectangular here inside the UK version, but we have to place chairs around them. There's dining table with chairs rectangular, which is what we're looking for. There are 4 seats there. This one has 6. We're going to use the 4 seats. Just click open. Oh, perfect. So it's quite big, so we're going to have to look at the dimensions and see if there's a smaller one. There's 200 by 1000, 2000 by 1000. So the next thing we could do is to breed these, is to also duplicate this type and say 4 seats. But instead of 2000, we're going to want to use 1500 over here. This one should be 750 by 750. That's the height. 750 is the height, but we know now that the height should be around 880. So table height is 750, that should be 880 with 2 seats. So just click OK. So table height is 880. Width of the table should be, instead of 2000, 1500, and then the width should be 750. Okay, so now click OK. So you have a much smaller table now. and then we can put it in here. So the next is the staircase. The staircase goes up and meets a tiny bedroom at the top. So in order for us to create that staircase, it's a straight run staircase. Rather than assume, we're going to actually look at it inside of SketchUp to see how it is. So let's just zoom around like this and to use it over to, you see the stairs, there's 1 2 3 4 5 6, it's 6 runs there, and it goes all the way to the bed. There's a bedroom here, so 6 runs there that leads to a bedroom. So for this, I'm actually going to do it outside, and then I'm going to move the staircase inside the house. So for now, we're going to use a sketch staircase. So let's just try this. The boundary of the staircase is going to be like this. The second boundary, it should be about 1000 meters, but we can change that. Let's try 900. Well, that's the boundary. We can now create each riser. Let's say one riser here. So you can use an offset tool. I think this is the first time we're actually using this tool. So we're going to use the offset tool now. By 300, we're going to copy each. So I'm just going to, okay, not 300. We have to check what's 240. So we're going to try 250 for our own risers. So we're going to use the offset tool here, 250. One, two, three, 4. Oops. We're going to undo that. Okay. 1 2 3 4 5 6. So the last one is going to be a landing. But I want the landing to be somewhere here. So I'm going to use the riser tool to actually complete that. So you can use the trim and extend tool also in Revit. Trim to corner. I'm just going to select this and join it here, join the boundary to this other riser. So this is roughly the sketch that I have, and stair path is this way. We're going from here to here. So that's what we have now, and hopefully the calculations are correct. Revit does the calculation by itself. So I'm just going to click OK. So now we have a 2 + 6. Okay. So in 3D, this is what the staircase looks like, and we can change the style of staircase. What we're looking for is a residential stair, so I can select this. I'll select the staircase as a whole. There's none. You can choose the properties here. Under the assembled stair, we're looking for the 190 by 250. Wonderful, that's what we're looking for. 250 staircase. So this is a residential staircase, by the way. So I've changed that from the one that was before into this one. I don't want these sides because I'm going to use the wall as a structural element for the staircase. The two walls on each side is going to act like a structural support for the staircase, but this is the support that Revit is including because I created this staircase outside. So we're going to have to delete this, and we're also going to have to delete this. So we now have our staircase bare. So we now go back to the architecture tab, and we're going to pull the staircase and move it into the building. So we're going to move this. We'll have to create the wall supports for the staircase, remember. So we're going to just drop it over here. If it doesn't align, you can use the keyboard to move it around. So now that we have our staircase in place, it is already inside the wall, as I can see. So we're going to have to move this side outward a bit. And remember, we have our camera inside, so we can still create a different camera, but right now the staircase looks like we have it where we want it to be. So we can still move this one out because it is right inside the wall now, because we want it to. Okay, this looks perfect, which may mean that we have more risers than we actually need, but that's okay. You can just click accept. So this is going down. You can always go to 3D view to make sure that the staircase is not completely destroying everything. But if we can't see the staircase from here, we can use the 3D view, create a different camera, and that is going to point from this point and show us what the staircase looks like. So there's our staircase inside the building. We don't need this railing anymore. So we have our staircase near the wall, and that's perfect. That's actually perfect. So we have our staircase in place. We now have to create the reference wall. I can go over to this wall that I created here, this internal wall, select it, and when you select it, you go ahead and press right click and say create similar, or you can press CS on your keyboard as a shortcut to use create similar. So now that we're here, you can select this part of the wall. Is a midpoint in the wall where it does this square, and just drag that to create that that wall to act as a support for the staircase. Once we have our wall in place, we still have to join the wall to this other wall here. So we're going to select it and drag this end to meet with this other side of the wall. So now that we have our wall in place, we can create a floor or a floor bed that acts like a structure for the bed, where the bed is going to be the bedroom. We still have to go back into SketchUp. So we see here that there's a structural wall here, or a wall, I'm going to call it, and I don't know what is inside the wall right now, but I know that there's one wall here which we have created, and then there's another wall on this other side. So we're just going to use the same create similar internal wall to create that. So inside of Revit, we can use this and say CS to create similar. You can join it to this point. Just go ahead and create, drag it to the end where it meets the wall. Now we have to move this wall closer to this other end, so we can just select this part and use the arrow key to move it inside. It's going to avoid the staircase, but that's okay. Once we have that in place, we have our wall. Now these internal walls, they do have connections that are up to level 2. So if you go over to our elevation view, you can head over to the elevation here and say north elevation. They all move up to level 2, and level 2 is 3,600 meters. We're going to have to move them, but we're not going to allow them join to the roof, because if you see it in SketchUp, those walls don't actually go to the roof, so they're about maybe half of level 1. So inside of Revit, I'm actually going to measure the height of that wall. So I'm going to go to hidden line. I'm going to switch this to the wireframe. So inside of the wireframe, we can use the VV command and change as the visibility and graphics override, and change the model generic, bring that to halftone again and click apply. And then now we can see where that wall actually stops. Using the wireframe also helps us see other elements that we might have placed wrongly. So like the railing also exists inside the wall, so we can delete that. It's not supposed to be there. And this dining table that we have here, it's placed on L1. It's supposed to be on the ground floor, and say okay. And the next one, sofa, is also supposed to be on the ground floor. And of course the cabinet here and the toilet, they are all supposed to be on the ground floor. There's something here. This is the cooktop. The cooktop is supposed to be on the ground floor, but the height of the elevation from that ground floor is 880. So you can just click that and click accept. So now the cooktop goes all the way to the top where it's supposed to be. So having it on wireframe in Revit helps you see some things that you may not have seen before. The staircase as well, which is a huge problem now. We're going to have to move the staircase. It's between the ground floor and level 2. I'm going to click apply. There we go. So our staircase is also sorted, thank God. It was almost a problem. So why did we come to the wireframe again? You check the height of that wall. The height of this wall from the ground is, you're going to use the modify tool, go to the measuring tool. Wow, save our project. So you can just select this and push it all the way to the ground to see 1313. That's the height of that wall. So inside of Revit now, we can go back to the architecture tab and right click, go ahead and select this wall. You can press tab to select the two of them and then change the top constraint from L2 to unconnected height, and then change this to 1313.0. Once that is there, click apply. So the wall is going to have the half height that we're looking for, so it's not going all the way to the top now. So there's a wall there. You can use tab key once you get to this point. Press tab, press tab, press tab. So we see that wall now. It's, well, not exactly where we want it to be, but we can always move it around like this. So that's good. So we see the next one here. You can select this wall and move it all the way to the top to meet the other wall. So it's going to be 1448 now. That's the Revit version of the dimension that we found out before. So we can go back to architecture on the outside and make sure that everything is just going the way it's supposed to. I can select this model here and use the temporary hide and isolate to actually hide the element. So this is the building that we have now. We can see it inside of Revit, how it actually looks, to see if we have everything correctly the way it's supposed to look. So this staircase wall, I would want to bring this wall to meet with the staircase over here. I think I can use the align tool for this. So I can select align. I want to align this. I want to align this wall with it. So that's where it goes. So it's exactly where I want it to now. And then I'm going to I also want to align this wall with this wall. So this is just using our view of Revit to make sure that our building is correct. So we have our wall and we know where our bed is going to be. This wall, it's at the height where I want it to be, but in the future we can go ahead and change it. So let's just keep going. We can bring out our reset temporary hide and isolate now. So what we have to do next at this point, we can create the bed, we can create the floor for the bed. We have to go to the section view, or we can use the north elevation tool. Since we're on wireframe there, we can use the north elevation here. So we see where the bed is going to be, we see where this floor is going to be. So that height is 1448. So we're going to use the architecture tool. Let me just click modify and then go create a level that is for the bed. So we're going to just do this and change the level head to both ends. Okay, so instead of calling this level 4, we're going to call this bedroom level. But this level is going to be at 144 from the ground level. 1440. Let's try that. Okay, close enough. We can use our eye to move it around. Okay, I forgot it was 1313. I'm sorry. Okay, so it's 1313 from the ground floor, but 1655 if we measure it like this. Or let's use the align tool if it's going to allow us. I'm going to use modify tab, select align. So the very top of this staircase now, or the very top of this wall, align it to this level. So that gives us 1617. So that's where the bed is going to be. So we're going to go ahead to architecture tab, and we're going to create a floor. So under the architecture, this floor, we're going to use an upper joist. There's carpet finish, wood finish. I'm going to use carpet, upper joist 268. So with that, we're going to create floor by boundary. We're going to use a rectangle here. So we're just going to start at this point and move it all around to this other point of this wall. So just like this. And if we check our 3D view number 2, we can accept. I still don't see the floor yet, so I can use my tab key. I just realized that I created that floor on level 1, which shouldn't have been. So I'm going to have to select this floor now because it's on level 1 and move it to the bedroom floor, the bedroom level. So once that's done, I can click apply or just move my mouse to this working space. And if you go back to level 2, we should see the floor now. So there is the wooden floor. There is the wooden floor. We have to now align it properly. So we're going to hide the SketchUp model now and just focus on Revit. We're going to select the SketchUp model and just select the pair of glasses and hide that element. So we see the floor joist now. I can move over to or we can use the 3D view to actually do this. Just go over to the top just to make sure that everything is as it should be. It looks like it is, so you can just edit the boundary and make sure that the floor is inside the wall so it's not floating by itself. We can do the same thing here. Okay, we're going to just stop at the corners. So this is how it's supposed to be. So just going to click accept just to be sure that it is where we want it to be. The dotted line that you see here are the texture for the carpet, and we can just go back to hide and then reset the view to show us all the elements. So we're currently looking at the top, but we're going to just come out of it right now. And okay, so we're back inside the building for our 3D view. Now it's time to place the bed on top of that. So we're going to go over to the component tab and select bed. We're going to move to start with level 1, but what I want to do is to create a floor plan for that ground floor bed. So we're going to head over to view tab in Revit. We're going to see plan views, so we're going to just click that down and say floor plan. Under floor plan, we want an architecture floor plan, but we want it for the bedroom level. We can also create one for the ground floor, so I can select these two. Do not duplicate existing views. I'm just going to uncheck this option, so I'm going to say ground floor and bedroom floor. Click OK. So now we have the ground floor and we have the bedroom floor. So for the bedroom floor now, we want to place the bed. So we're going to just select the SketchUp model again, select this and hide that element. So now few walls will not be visible here, but that's okay. We can just choose the architecture component and then we're going to load in bed. So bed is under furniture, so we're already there. Beds, there's beds number 1. I think that's fine. I'm just going to click open. So we're going to place this bed right in the center of this. So now we have our bed in place. We can reset the hide and isolate and just go back to 3D view to see our bed. It's currently very high right now, so we can see the north elevation to see how the bed appears. So the bed is floating on something. We can find a way to push this bed down to make sure that it's inside the floor and not just floating and hanging like this. So to do that, we have to actually change the elevation from the host. I'm going to try using a direction at first. Okay, it's not allowing me to do that. I can't move the bed inside the floor any more than this. So I think we're going to settle for this the way it is, and it's close to the skylights, which is what we're going to be doing next now. So what I want to do first is to create a roof. So for the roof, we're going to go to L2, the level 2 architectural. For that, we're going to head over to the roof and then click the roof. We're going to use roof that is wood rafter 184 asphalt shingle. We're going to use this because it's not as hot as it's, or let's use the insulated version. So 184 insulated rafter roof. We're on L2 now. The roof is going to slope on 2 sides but not on one side, because if you see it in SketchUp, if you look out here, the roof is sloping on this side and on this side. So this other side of the building is straight and it acts like a wall. So in Revit, to recreate that, we're going to use boundary line. So we're going to define the slope on this side. So we're just going to get over here, define the slope on this side, but then we're going to uncheck that option, or we can just draw all at once and then uncheck the option of defining the slope on either side. So I can just select this option and say uncheck this option for here, and the same thing for this other shorter side. So the 2 short sides, we're not going to check slopes for them. So slope is only going to be on the long side. That's going to create a gable roof for us. There is no overhang for this building, so what we're going to do now is to accept it. If we go into 3D view now, you can see that our roof is high up from where it's supposed to be, but we're going to connect it very soon, so don't worry. What we want to do first is to create the skylight. The skylight is 1 on this side and it's 2 on this side and 1 on the other side. So we're going to start with the side that has 2 skylights. So we're going to go to architecture, we're going to go to component, we're going to load family. The skylight is the type of window, so we're going to scroll to windows. Right at the bottom here, there's structural window, there's window round opening and window square opening. But although the skylight is a structural window, I would like to have some framing assigned to it. So we're going to look for an actual skylight. If we can't find one, we're going to use the opening instead. So I'm just going to keep scrolling. Okay, I think I found the skylight. There's roof light. So here's one. There's double, there's multi, there's roof light 1. So we're going to use this one. It's a single one, but we're going to edit the dimensions anyway. So let's just go in there. So I'm going to load this one in. Okay, Revit has shown me an error now that this component is not a window, it's for a roof. So it's a window roof light, but Revit doesn't recognize it as a window, so it thinks like it's a window for a wall. So we're going to try to load a different family. So we're just going to click no for this and press escape here. We're going to now go to component and just load it manually as a component, and then we're going to have roof, this one, click open. So now that it's loaded, okay, still showing me the same error. So I don't have to go through component, I have to go through window, not component. So I'm just going to go through window and click load, and then go down to window on yes, Windows, we're going to choose roof, light, and click OK. Now Revit can actually allow me to use it. So I should have done it as a window. So I'm going to just click and drop it on this side. There's one here and there's two on this other side. So we're going to edit these two windows. I don't actually like how they look right now, so that's where the editing comes in. Let's do one here and one here. I'm still going to load in a different version of window. So we're under window now, we're going to just load in a different one because I don't like the shape of this one. This second roof light looks better with double bars. But we can go ahead and check the US version if they have any better roof windows. So go over to window and just check openings. Okay, there's a skylight in the US version, so we have a rooftop hung here, skylight. That's the one where we're going. So there are a few skylight versions here. So we have a flat one, we're going to select that. We're going to also select not the ridge. We're going to select this hung, skylight, and pivot hung. So these three gives us an option to work with. So we're going to load that in. Now that it's there, I'm just going to put one in here. Yes, that's perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm going to switch this to the skylight that we just brought in. What's the name? Skylight 900 by 900. That's what we're going to do for every other person. Skylight 900 by 900. So I'll just delete this one and then change this to skylight 900 by 900. Now we have to go back into the level 2. Or we can use one of the elevations. Let's say the north elevation. That is going to show us the dimension of this skylight. So there are actually two here. We're going to use temporary hide. Okay, not temporary hide and isolate. We're going to change this from to hidden line like this, and we're already on gray. So what we want to do first is to actually measure the skylights, right? So going to use this to measure this 1000 on the outside, 1000 by 913, 1000 by 913. Now we need to know if it's the same on both sides. You can use the measuring tool. Yeah, it's the same, 1000 by 913. So we're going to have to head over to our version of it. We're going to select this edit type 1000 by 913. So the width is 1000. Remember, we have to duplicate it. Call this 913 by 1000. Click OK. So the width is 1000. I think I'm going to use 1010 by 913. We're going to use 923 just to add that 10. So we're going to click OK. So now we can move this. We'll try the align tool again. I'm going to keep doing this until the end of this project. Select this align tool and select this one. Wow, it actually worked. Wonderful. Okay, so that has aligned it into place. We can now go back to the north elevation. We're going to do the same thing here. We can use the align tool, but first we have to actually change this from 900 by 900 to 913 by 1000. Okay, so now we're going to have to use the align tool to select this one and move this one. So that's perfect. I noticed that the dimension of this skylight may be confusing right now. We have to check the true dimension of this skylight. So I'm just going to select this roof and we're going to hide this roof. So we're going to try to measure this window again because I'm not sure of the dimension now. So it says here 1600 by 1000. So the width is 1000, the length is 1600, not 913. So we have to make a change there. So we can reset this, hide and isolate. I didn't measure it properly, sorry for that. So you can select this window. It's yeah, we've gone back a few steps, so we can change this to 913, but we're going to rename this to 1600 because it's not 1000. So we're going to change this to 1610 and click OK. Okay, it's the length that is 1610, not the width. So this is 923 by 1610. Click OK. Okay, that's the correct dimension now. So change this to 1600. So it's on this side, it's on this side. So we're going to just have to align them. There are two on that side, one on this side. Remember that. So you can head over to the north elevation and try to align them. So on this side, we can use the align tool here and select this side of this and move this one this way, and we can just drop it down. We can head back to the 3D view and we see that this window here is supposed to be on this side. So I'm just going to select this one, delete it, and then create the window again on this other side, but this time 900 by 913 by this. So this window is supposed to be here. So we can select this one and move it down. Okay, so now we have our building windows the way they are supposed to be, or our roof windows the way they are supposed to be. So we have two on this side, we have one on this other side, two on this side, we have one on this other side. And this one should be on the other end. So you can actually move this manually over to here. Okay, it doesn't allow us to do that. We're going to have to align it as well. So I'm going to use this front elevation like this, and we're going to use the align tool to align this side, or we can use the north elevation, south. You can use the south elevation and select this part and align it with this part. So that's the correct thing now. It takes a while to actually adjust a lot of things when you're coming from SketchUp to Revit. So I'm going to use this and align it with this one and this one and align it. I think this one is already aligned. So we're good to go as it is right now. We can now join this roof to this wall. So we can go back to 3D view and make sure that the wall that we're selecting is the correct wall. We want to join this roof to this wall. But to do that, we can go back to the north elevation and we're going to create a level for that wall. So we're going to call that level roof level. So underground, we're going to call this ceiling. Okay, let's call it ceiling level. So this is the ceiling level. It's about 2,550. We'll take that as the ceiling level. So why I'm doing that is we need somewhere to plant the roof. So the roof is going to be on level ceiling. So now we have our roof in place. Now that the roof is there, we can go back to 3D view and we want to connect this roof to this wall. Now we can select this wall and say attach top or base to the object above. So we can select the roof and you can see that Revit actually joins that wall over there. So we're going to do the same thing for this part of the wall. Select this one and attach top to base, or attach top to the element above. Revit joins that. So we can select this one, do the same thing, attach it to the roof. You can go back to the last wall, select that last wall, attach top to base, and select the roof. So now that we have everything in place, I notice that we have a window that we haven't created here. This window is on level 1 or the ground floor. We're going to choose the ground floor instead, and we can select windows. Instead of skylights, we want to select a similar window to this one that we created here. This is a fixed window 600 by 700. We're going to duplicate this window based on the dimension of this other one. So we're going to just select this. The width here is 1000. And from the north elevation, we can also measure what the height is. 1000 by 600. So we can go back to the ground floor, architecture, select the window, and head over to that, or let's use this one, and say create similar. Right click on it and say create similar. While we're here, we're going to edit type, duplicate this one, and the width here is supposed to be 1000. So we're going to change the width from 600 to 1000, and the height was 600. So the width is going to be 1000, 1010, and height is 610. I was going to click OK, and that is our window. So now we have our window in place. I'm going to push this to the outside. I'm going to do the same thing here. So now we have our two windows. We can see the 3D view. There's our window. We have our window. So our internal walls now, this wall is supposed to stop. It can't go to the roof. I don't think so, but let's just confirm that from SketchUp. So now that we're inside SketchUp, we have to see where this wall goes. Okay, this wall actually goes all the way to the roof. You can see it here. So it's good that we went on to confirm. So inside Revit, we can attach top to base and choose the roof for that wall. And we can see it now. So in the camera 3D view, if we go on to move the camera a bit, can we show camera? I have to go back to the ground floor. Okay, we can see the camera now. So we can move the camera away like this, and just to see a view of that wall. So there is the wall. You can see the wall selected now, and it is near that building. Should we go to a colored version? Let's try consistent colors. Revit is asking us to save our project. So there's a clash between our Revit model. So we're going to hide and isolate the SketchUp model first. We're just going to use this temporary hider element. So you can see the Revit model now. We can also see that our sink is non-existent. We have to choose a different sink for this place, but our shower is in there. We can also see the countertop. There's no sink. We have to add a sink here and a countertop for all these places. Our cooking element is there. Window is also in place, and we need to add a sink and a countertop. I knew we were going to come back to this countertop at some point, but the building is almost complete now. We can head over to ground floor. You see our cooktop, we see the SketchUp model, but we're going to add our sink, and we also have to change that sink at the bathroom. So we have to look for, we're going to just load family here, switch from windows. We're going to find casework and countertop. There's a countertop with sink hole. There's countertop. We're looking for a countertop that has a sink. Okay, there's a countertop here with a sink. We're just going to open this one. Yeah, we can override what is currently inside of Revit, and we're going to just use spacebar to rotate the countertop that you want to use, and we're just going to align the sink with this. Once the sink is aligned, we can move it around, so you can just select this and move this. That's the way Revit countertop elements actually work. You can move them around like this. It's always good to use the 3D as a reference to see what you're doing. So you can see that it's not currently aligned, so we have to move things around still. But I can still go back to the ground floor, and we're going to align this. So you just use the modify tab and go to align. We're going to select this part of the building and align the countertop to that. So now that the countertop is there, the sink also has to move. So we have to move the sink as well. Hopefully we can select it. You can use tab, remember to always select items. So I'm just going to select the sink. The sink is selected now, so you can move it from this corner here to the edge of the countertop. So you can always use 3D back and forth to make sure that everything that you're moving is moving the way you want it to go. I noticed that my sink is not moving the way I want it to go. So it's still down to a process of editing, because that's all what Revit is anyway, revise and edit. So we're going to just move the countertop edge a bit to this way. I've never actually tried the align tool in 3D in a while, so let me just try this. Align this, not like that. So I want to cover this. Okay, good. So I can use direction to move that, but I need to move the sink backwards into the countertop the way it's supposed to be. So you can go back to the ground floor. So I notice as I select the sink, I think there are directional buttons here that you can move them. So I'm going to move the sink into the countertop like this, and we can go ahead and check 3D view if that's okay. Okay, that's what we're looking for. It's also some parts of it sticking out like this, so you can still go back to the ground floor again to be sure that what we're doing is actually what we want to do. Okay, that's the size of the countertop. So go back to level 3. Okay, that's perfect. So we've sorted out our countertop now. I see that this window, okay, the window is exactly where I want it to be. So what I need next is to cover this space over here. We're going to need a countertop that is small enough to close this space, or we're going to edit one. So we can head over to architecture again and say component. We're looking for a countertop. So we have a countertop here already, and we can go ahead and edit. So I'm just going to select this one and click open, load it in, and then you see how long it is. We actually need to edit that. So I'm just going to drop it in there and select this. Make sure that the height is 880 from the ground floor and click apply. So now we're going to have to align this guy. I'm just going to drop it in there, wonderful, and then drag this all the way here, and then we can now move it into this space. Just select move and then move this countertop over here to close that space. If it doesn't close perfectly, Revit has an option for you to move the elements around So that should help us close the countertop. If you go back to 3D view here, we can see that the countertop is really high. I think the 880 was already covered by the countertop itself, so I didn't need to add that. So I can press it back to 0 and click apply. So that's going to take our countertop to where it's supposed to be. So I notice now that I could still edit this a bit further and just go back to ground floor, and instead of having it over the other one, I can bring it back like this. Okay, that's good. So in 3D, this is what we have. Our window is clashing with the countertop, so I'm going to have to move the window high up a bit. The seal height is currently 900. I can change this to 1000 and then click apply. It's still interfering. 1100 and click apply. So that's okay. I prefer this. So we're getting close to what we want. We need one more countertop to cover this particular cabinet, or we could select this one and then head over to the ground floor and pull this countertop all the way to this end to cover that cabinet. So it's covering the cooktop now, as I can see. We'll have to check again in 3D. Okay, in 3D it shows that there is no problem. Also here, we still need to cover this particular space. So again, back to ground floor. This part showed us that there was no problem here. Back to 3D view. Okay, it took a while, but we finally sorted out our kitchen. And what's remaining now is to look at this sink again and just pull this a little bit closer to this side. Say 3D view and do that. We see that the sink is clashing with this cabinet here. We need to actually reduce the size of the sink. So we're going to go back to ground floor. There's a button here that actually moves the sink around, but we need to reduce the size of the sink. And we're going to reduce it to match where this rectangle is that shows the cabinet. So we can just do that and try in 3D. So we actually want to close this cabinet to not allow the sink clash with the cabinet. So I can just select this cabinet or this countertop and use the arrow to move it around. And you see that that creates another problem for us here at this other end. So we can just select the countertop over here and go back to the ground floor, and we can use shaded, I think. And we can move this manually and just extend it over to this point, and that should cover our sink and countertop. So we have our wall, we have our windows, we have our furniture, we have our bed, we have our staircase. What is left for us now is to create the curtain wall and the door that leads to the house. To create a curtain wall in Revit, just go over to the architecture tab, and then under walls, it's the very last option after the internal walls. So if we just scroll down a bit, you can find the exterior glazing curtain wall here. That's the one that we're going to use, and let's go ahead and select that. And in the edit type, we're actually going to edit the type, but before that, I should have measured the spacing between the curtain walls. So I'm just going to come here and measure that spacing inside of the SketchUp model that came with us. There's 700 here, and we're just going to cancel that and say right click, repeat command, measure, and just head over here and see if we're sure. 700 again. So it's 700 for the width. So we're going to go back to wall. We still have curtain wall selected. We're going to edit the type, and what you want to do first is to automatically embed the curtain wall, so that when we draw it on the wall, it's going to cut through the wall and create the curtain wall. The horizontal spacing, for this we're going to put 700 over here and click apply. I'm also going to do 700 over here and also click apply. We can change it much later. We're going to click OK, and then over here we're going to start from this part and drag it all the way up to here and click OK. So we now have our curtain wall in place, and what you want to do next is to head over to 3D view to see what the curtain wall actually looks like. So this is what we have. Obviously we have to edit most of this to get it into place. What we want to do first is to select the curtain wall and then turn on most of the mullions or framing. To turn on vertical mullions, just head over here, because we only need the vertical one and not the horizontal one. For the border, for the interior type, we're going to use rectangular mullions of 25 mm, and we're going to do that for the interior type. And for the border, we're going to use for the border type 1, we're going to use the L corner mullion 125 by 125. We're going to do the same thing here, border type 2, L corner mullion. So for the horizontals, we're not going to do any interior types, we're only going to use by the border. So we're going to do border type 1, and then we're also going to do the same thing here, border type L 125 by 125. So you can hit apply and click. So it shows us here that the curtain wall has been placed. They are not joined to another curtain wall. The angle of the corner mullion will be default of 90 degrees. Yes, I agree. So click OK and click OK here. So this is what the curtain wall looks like. Obviously we need it to be all the way down here. But in order to do that, we just need to select this curtain wall here and then change the top constraint from unconnected 6000 to ceiling flare. So head over to ceiling and click apply and then click OK. So now we have our mullion there. So you can select the SketchUp model now and hide it from the view just to see what the building actually looks like. So this is how it is. You can see the SketchUp wall, and we can see the spacing for the horizontal mullions or the horizontal curtain wall. It's not supposed to be there. I did that on purpose so you can see how it is, and then we can go ahead and remove it. So I'm just going to select this and then edit the type. We can see the horizontal spacing here, and we can go ahead and change this. Instead of 700, we want this to be the height of the ceiling, which is going to be 1003 by 1003. So I'm just going to click OK for this, accept. So it shows us what we're looking for now, but we're not quite there yet, so we're going to have to change it again to maybe 1700 now, or 1600. Then click OK. It's still going up, so we still have to just manually keep doing that. Let's try 2000. Click OK. Okay, that's too high up now, so 1007 is the right answer. I think 2100 is best, so just click OK. So now that that's gone, we have our mullion. Now we need a door that can actually open into this building, but we have to confirm from SketchUp. So the SketchUp building, I noticed it doesn't actually have a door that leads into the building, which is a problem. So we're going to have to choose for ourselves what we want or where we want the door to be. So inside of Revit now, we can reset the hide elements now. To select the curtain wall properly, I'm just going to hide the SketchUp model first of all, and that's going to go ahead and hide this element. And we're going to select the curtain wall now and just press tab while you selected the curtain wall, because you need to select a panel in the curtain wall. So you can go ahead and select one individual panel. You can see the properties here. There's a system glazed panel. There's also all these other elements. You can change it to a wall or anything. What we want to change it to is a panel that is a door in the curtain wall. So you notice that it's not even here yet, so we're going to have to import that panel. So I'm just going to uncheck this option, press escape, and then reset temporary hide and isolate. So we're going to head over to door, and I'm trying this as door first because sometimes it can tell you there's an error if you use the component option. So I'm going to just choose door, and we're going to go up to find the door, and under the doors we're going to choose external doors. We're going to use one of those external doors that is a curtain wall door. I think I saw one already. This is one, but we need one with a handle, so we're going to just keep going and keep looking for one of the doors that is a curtain wall door. So So that's the external door. We can't find any that is a curtain wall. I'm going to try the US category to see if they have a sort of door that is like that. Okay, there's curtain wall panels. Praise the Lord. So the curtain wall panel, there's empty panel, there's glazed panel, there's solid panel. None of them are actually doors. So we need to go back to the door panel. There's commercial, there's residential. Let's just check. Okay, wonderful. We have a curtain wall double glass here. We have a curtain wall double glass with storefront. We have double wall, the single glass. So we're going to import these three options to see what we can use. I'm just going to click all of them and import them. Okay, Revit has finally imported those without worry. So we can select the, okay, there is the error now. I was waiting for the error to happen. So it says that some of these categories are not in the door category. It shows that they are not part of doors, so we're going to have to do it again. So I'm just going to click close this and then go over to import or insert, and under insert we're going to load the family. So we're going to do it as a component now. I'm just going to select all three of them and click open. So now that those elements have been imported into Revit, we can select the Revit, so we had another error even when we used it as component. So we're going to have to try wall. So we're going to head over to architecture and say wall, but under the wall command we're going to insert and then load family, and we're going to try inserting it as a wall. Hopefully this side is going to work. Okay, it actually worked as a wall. So what we're going to do next is going to press escape and then going to select the SketchUp model and hide the element. So now that the element is hidden, we can go to the curtain wall, press tab multiple times, select the curtain wall and then start pressing tab. Now that we have the panel selected, we can then change it from the glazed panel to the curtain wall door. There's double glass, there's also storefront, there's single glass. So you can change it to single glass door. If you go to the ground floor like this, you can see that the door is now on this other side, but I think the handle is only on the inside, which is good, I guess. And we now have our single handle. I think one is good because it's a tiny house. It's not really a big, you don't really need double doors for this. So that is the door. We have the door in here, and there is the building. So we can go ahead and uncheck this and reset this option back to normal, and then we have our 3D view. We still have our Revit and SketchUp model combined together into one, but as it is now, we've gone on to finish everything that we needed to. The only thing left now is this sink, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this sink from the building because it's not the way I want it to be. I'm going to have to choose a different sink. So go over to architecture, and under the architecture tab we can load in components, and under the component tab we can look for sink that is actually 3D. So we can head over to plumbing. Under plumbing we have architecture, fixtures, sinks. Oops, back to sink. There's no, okay, there is one here. There are round sinks, there's a double sink here, there's a single sink for kitchen. We need a bathroom sink. So I don't know which category we're in. We're in the US category, so let's try the UK category now. And under plumbing we'll see architecture, fixtures, sinks. There's a sink here. There are other types of sinks. We were looking for a 3D. Okay, there's high, low, double sink, kitchen. These are all kitchen sinks. Here's a bathroom sink. They're all round sinks. I don't think there's a problem with the round sink. Okay, there's a wall-based sink here. We're going to use this one. So we can bring this in here and load it. There we go. So now we have our sink, and we can go back to 3D view, and it's currently on the ground. So we have to change that elevation to 800 and let's try 880. You can just click apply. It's still too high, so we're going to try 600, which is like seal height. Still too high. All right. Okay, 600 looks good. 585. Okay, that looks good. We can just move it around like this and make sure that by ground floor everything is the way it should be. Okay, that looks perfect. So we have our sink in place now. That is a normal sink. I can just choose to put a cabinet under that sink just to complete everything and not just make it a floating sink. So we can choose a cabinet. There's one here, 710 by 900. Oh, that's the third time we're saving. So we're just going to use space and put this cabinet under the sink, and we're going to change the dimension of the cabinet because it's currently very big. So look at 3D, and by 3D view we still can move the cabinet above, or we can move the sink on top of the cabinet, but we still can change the, you can press space to change the position of that cabinet and bring it to the front, and then use the arrow to move it back. But we have to change the dimension of the cabinet because it is currently so big. So we can use edit type, duplicate this type. The height of the cabinet is okay. The depth is 600. We can try 500 there, or 400 is fine. 900, we can try 600. 600 by 400 by 710. This is 400. Width is 600. Perfect. So in 3D, what does that look like? So what we have to do next is to move this guy down. Let's try 510. Everything else at this point is just trying to revise and edit to make sure that all the edges align together and the building is correct the way it's supposed to be. So we have a sink working with our cabinets below it there, and there's also a toilet on the inside. SketchUp makes it easier to move around like that, but in Revit you can also see the toilet now. It's behind this wall. Okay, so everything is the way we want it to be. Everything is the way we want it to be. We can go ahead and close this, and we have our building complete now. And we've successfully been able to transition or bring a building from SketchUp into Revit and remodel that building inside Revit using Revit elements. So that is going to be the end of this tutorial. If you did enjoy it, or if you did find it useful or very helpful, do let me know in the comment section. And if you have any more additional questions about how to create more building models like this, or any other suggestions or models that you want me to create, you can go ahead and let me know in the comment section. And if you follow along with this video, you will know how to create a SketchUp model inside of Revit, and it will take you a while, but it's worth doing, and you will get the model accurately the way it's supposed to be. So what we want to do next now is to go ahead and hide the SketchUp model, and just use the temporary hide and isolate. You can see hide category this time, and there is our building. We can see it in 3D. You can go ahead and hide the elements, and we can see our Revit model that is now our SketchUp model that is now completely modeled inside of Revit. It's the same building. You can still go ahead and export this. I'm just going to use file. I'm going to use export. You can export this as an FBX or as an IFC, I'm going to export it as an FBX file, because in case I want to work in 3D, I can have an FBX version of it. You can see FBX. You can use this to create a render version of it, and then I'm just going to turn off. I'm going to leave the hide and isolate selected so that Revit doesn't export the SketchUp model alongside the Revit model. So that's what I'm going to leave, and that is the way I want it to be. For the environment, I will create a separate video for that, how we can go about doing it. So there will be a part 2 for us creating the environment. So let me know in the comment section if you want to see the video of how we create an environment for this building, because right now it's just a building that is standing alone and it's not really complete. But right now we've been able to finish the SketchUp into Revit modeling phase, and the BIM complete model is now ready. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and hanging out for this long.